If y'all thought that we have found out everything that there is to know about Diddy and his freakoffs girl, you are in for a shock of a lifetime. Because, according to Diddy's former assistant, the things we know about Diddy, shenanigans, are allegedly just a tip of the iceberg, because the real situation is way worse than we know. According to the assistant, Phil Pines, Diddy used to force him to help him set up freak-off parties in advance, and it was no small feat. Phil also had some wild stories of Diddy allegedly forcing him to buy all sorts of illegal substances, if you know what I mean. And get this, Phil isn't just making some wild claims out of the side of his mouth. He came with receipt. I'm talking voice notes, text messages, and all that messy stuff. It looks like Phil just might be the key by taking Diddy down, so let's break this down. According to reports, Phil was Diddy's assistant from 2019 to 2021, and when I tell y'all that he saw some really crazy things, I'm not even joking. To nobody's surprise, Phil claimed that Diddy used to make him organize freak-offs. Even though he claimed that, Diddy used to refer to them as Wild Kings KN Child. One thing about Diddy, he sure does know how to name his night. And again, it's not surprising that Phil had to help Diddy prepare for the Wild King night, because given everything that we know about the freak-alls, they required a lot of planning, both before and after, because y'all know that the aftermath required a lot of care, according to the federal indictment documents that the feds released after they arrested Diddy. There was a lot of thought and planning that went into the freak-off, because they were so extensive that they required some careful planning. The court documents said, in arranging these freak-offs, Combs, with the assistance of members and associates of the Combs enterprise, transported and calls to be transported commercial workers across state lines, and internationally. Freak-offs occur regularly, sometimes lasted multiple days, and often involved multiple commercial workers during freak-offs. Combs distributed a variety of controlled substances to victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant, sometimes unbeknownst to the victim. Combs kept videos he filmed of victims engaging in sex acts with commercial workers after freak-offs. Combs and the victims typically received IV fluids to recover from the physical exertion and substance use. When Cassie sued Diddy, she went into extensive detail about the freak-offs, and it sounded like a nightmare. She painted a clear picture of the debauchery that went down at the freak-offs, and in the lawsuit, Cassie wrote, the first time Mr. Combs hired a man and brought the man to his home in Los Angeles. The man, Mr. Combs, and Ms. Ventura were masquerade masks and ingested. Mr. Combs directed Ms. Ventura to perform intimate acts with this man while Mr. Combs watched them. The entire encounter lasted multiple days. Mr. Combs began to call the arrangement a freak-off or faux. Cassie also revealed that not only did he allegedly use substances, but he also forced her to use the substances as well. She wrote, Mr. Combs always supplied Miss Ventura with copious amounts of before and during the foods. Miss Ventura was given ecstasy, GHB, ketamine, and alcohol in excessive amounts during force, which allowed her to disassociate during these horrific encounters. It became commonplace to get IV fluids in the days after an FO to recover from the excessive substances pushed upon her. Diddy the claims and accused Cassie of blackmail, with his lawyer saying he vehemently denies these offensive, outrageous allegations. Miss Ventura's demand of $30 million under the threat of writing a damaging book about their relationship was unequivocally rejected as blatant blackmail despite withdrawing her initial threat. Miss Ventura has now resorted to filing a lawsuit riddled with baseless and outrageous lies, aiming to tarnish Mr. Combs' reputation and seeking a payday. However, he settled the lawsuit within a day, and for a lot of people, this was the confirmation they needed to believe that Cassie could have been telling the truth anyway, who fans believe that Diddy might have chilled out over the years and that the whole freak-off thing was just something that he did to Cassie because he hated her or something. But from the stories that Phil is now telling, it looks like not only did Diddy allegedly keep up with the bad behavior after Cassie, but it might have even gotten worse, which is wild to imagine given the crazy things that Cassie laid out in her lawsuit. Cassie escaped from Diddy in 2018, and Phil worked with Diddy from 2019 to 2021, which means that Cassie was not Diddy's only alleged victim. According to Phil, who also filed a lawsuit against Diddy, the so-called Wild King nights were a frequent occurrence and happened more often than you would think, he said. Look, there's partying and then there's partying. There were guests that would frequently come over and participate in these intimate situations. Sometimes you would see new faces. Sometimes you'd see new faces come in and you wouldn't see them again. He also claimed that some of the women who came were so shaken by whatever they saw at the parties that he had to physically escort them out. He gave an example of one such occasion, saying, I remember a time when Diddy told me to come up and grab one of his guests' bags, take her down to the car and drive her to her hotel. I don't know what took place. All I can say is that when I brought her down to the car, she was shaking, physically shaking. She didn't look like how she looked the night before. She said something to the effect of, I've never done anything like this before, but that's not all. Because he claimed that Diddy allegedly got physical with the women, and not in a good way, he said. I absolutely witnessed things were getting a little heated. They were being very argumentative. He cursed at her. I told you I was crazy. Kicked her. She fell to the ground. Kicked her again. Yeah, given what we know about Diddy, this doesn't shock us. Phil also claimed that Diddy would also make him buy a long list of illegal substances for the parties, just as he used to force Cassie to do, and that most of the people at the parties were young women.
We had a laundry list of items that included lights, alcohol, ketamine, Molly. Those requests started to become more. A lot of times you would have him with a younger female, and there's a power dynamic there. A more impressionable girl is easier to reel in. Consent is between the people that are engaging, and I wasn't there in these situations to understand that.
And just to prove that he's not making things up for clout, Phil pulled up with some receipts, sharing voice notes of Diddy ordering him to get him some substances.
Phil, I need some Cialis. Can you give me 20 Xanax, please? Hey, Phil, I need a plan B.
I remember hearing the words, "Prove your loyalty to me, King." He grabbed me by the shoulders, pushed me to a girl.
It kind of sounds like Diddy tried to force Phil to participate in the Wild King night, which, again, wouldn't be surprising considering what Elrod said in his lawsuit. Little Rod claimed that Diddy would allegedly touch him against his wishes, and when he called him out on it, Diddy claimed that it was nothing but horseplay. So fans are kind of buying Phil's claims about Diddy because it tracks with what we've been told about Diddy. Well, to nobody's surprise, Diddy's lawyers immediately jumped in to defend him and deny the allegation. They said, no matter how many lawsuits are filed, it won't change the fact that Mr. Combs has never, or anyone, man or woman, adult or minor, we live in a world where anyone can file a lawsuit for any reason. Fortunately, a fair and impartial judicial process exists to find the truth, and Mr. Combs is confident he will prevail in court. Phil's claims left fans shook, and they left comments saying the assistant brought receipts. He had text messages, voice notes, and video. He came prepared. OMG, the voice notes Diddy was sending the field and what he was requesting. And the assistant testified in front of the grand jury about this time with Diddy. If he told the court what he just told this journalist lady, Diddy might be cooked for real, for real. You can't force people to have sex in front of you to show loyalty. That's why I'm tuned in. Anyway, who do y'all believe Phil's comments about Diddy, or do y'all think that he's just looking for a payday? Drop your thoughts in the comments, then check out this next video.